Good evening, everyone. It is Sunday, February 25th, and we're starting out the last week here of February, and we're just trying to figure out what's going on here. Things are starting to get a little complicated with all the indexes and the normal market relationships. So let's just dive right in here. So I think what's going on with just taking a look at Nasdaq. We had a just looking at the hourly chart here. We had a pretty large run up here after Nvidia earnings, and what this kind of looks like here is one of these irregular flats. Now, I don't really know if this is going to be like an ABC. We could potentially see something like this, and then head up a little higher, and then also start this C leg here of this pattern. Now, I don't really know if that's going to happen or not. We have to see a lot more strength behind the rallies here. We didn't really have a lot of people participating, even though we did have some regular volume, I guess you could say. But it was really based on just one company's earnings, and that's not really a sustainable sort of trend here. So we need some more participation here. And with that being said, we can see that we do have a little bit of expansion going on here. Like we have a little bit of a larger megaphone sort of pattern developing here, and that shows some weakness because we did have, as we take a look back, we had this ending diagonal sort of pattern here, and this very well might be a wave three. Like we might be able to see something like this develop where we might have a higher high, and we don't actually see this sort of irregular, and this isn't really happening yet. But I don't really know if that's gonna be the case because we don't really see a lot of participation. We've also saw a lot of, and again, this is at the hourly level, but we did see a lot of volume going into the selling part here, and we also see a lot of these high volume tests at the bottom, or at least like tests of support. And as we're going through these sort of corrective moves here, we're just inching, just slightly higher each time, and that's not really a good sign of strength or like broad market participation here. Now, if we zoom out and we take it up to the daily level, and if we take out some of this other junk here, but just look at it from a perspective of daily chart, and you can see here that we have some hammers, we have doji, we have all sorts of I guess you can say confusion going on here with buyers and sellers. Again, we did have this pretty big pump here as of the last part of last week due to Nvidia and all that sort of fun stuff with Nasdaq. But we only made just a really small high. And if you look at something like SPX, if you take a look at this, we've really gone just parabolic, just pretty much straight up. Now, I could see a case for higher levels here, but I don't want to stray too far from Nasdaq and what we're looking at. But from a longer term perspective, I think what we're seeing here is potentially a larger ending diagonal, where we could see, well, not really ending diagonal at that point; it's more like a channel, but we could see slightly higher levels here if we do see a continuation, but we should see some sort of marginal pullback if that's going to be the case, and then we would obviously launch. But we don't really have any like major earnings coming up or anything that really would serve as a catalyst for some sort of market huge market excess buy up. I also really wanted to show the Nvidia chart because I think this is pretty funny. If you look at this at the daily level, I mean, it really has gone parabolic. There's really no other way to say it. You look at some of these other indicators like RSI, MACD, we just see nothing but craziness, and that's unsustainable. And I mean, this company right now comprises 5% of the S&P 500. So if we do have some sort of pullback, even let's say it pulls back, 20%, it's gonna crush a lot of people. Uh, but if you just look at some of these other, mega cap type stocks here, you see just general weakness. Like you see Apple, we're looking at something like Amazon here. Even though it is grinding a little bit higher, we still have what looks to be these extended wave fives. And if you look at something like Microsoft, um, we might see some sort of consolidation at these levels here. And of course, we could see some sort of expansion to the upside, we might see something like this. We're just seeing a lot of excess right now. This is really like, quite frankly, the mania phase of of this rally. And if we pull it back to regular Nasdaq, and we could try to look at how these things are charted out. I really do see a pretty clear, pretty clear 5-wave pattern here. Or at least when we zoom out and we look at the daily level, we can see that it's really just exceeded everybody's expectations here. And this is just looking at NQ, of course. But let's say we switch the page here and we start looking at something like ES or really just SPX. I mean, isn't this kind of funny to see this massive, massive spike from the bottom? There's been almost zero pullback here, except for really just a couple of days, back in January when we first started, and it just faked everybody out. So, according to measurements and all sorts of all sorts of fancy things, we could speculate, of course, that we might see for like let's say ES here, we could see like 51.89. I don't think that's unrealistic. Right now, really, we broke the upper trend line for this quick, just long-term sort of channel that we've been grinding through. Originally, I thought this was going to be some sort of like an inverted sort of zigzag here. You can kind of see this WXY pattern, uh, but we really haven't seen this sort of ABC move down yet. And I'm kind of hoping we do because I really like to go long. But the reality of this is, if you've missed this part, I mean, it's almost too late right now. Even though we do have blue sky here, there's going to be lack of participation. There's already signs of buyer exhaustion. We can see with just declining just declining volume and overall just lack of market breadth here. So if we zoom in and we look at a little bit more of this in detail, we can also make the case that we do see this this sort of ABC move up, where you could say that this move here is an ABC up, and again, that's the reason why I think we could top around here, like this 5190. Let's just call it even 5200. If you look at something like SPX, it's reasonable. It's you can get up here to like this 5220, but this, just looking at the chart in general, we've had almost zero pullbacks here. So there's just a lot of anxiety here about how far it can go and when we might see some sort of pullback. But something else I'd like to show. I mean, there's a lot of bearish articles and things that have been popping up in the news recently, but let's say we layer in the 10-year, okay, and we start to look at how this fits. So typically, equities are inversely related to the 10-year, and we start to see this pretty large divergence here. We also see this sort of flag happening here with 10-year, and I'll go through that in a second. But I really wanted to show this against the backdrop of SPX because I think this is a pretty important takeaway. You can see how the yield tracks, and this orange line here is the inverted 10-year yield. And once you start to see, like through, let's say through the end of October here, once this, once we were almost about ready to fall off the cliff here, I remember these couple days here. It's kind of interesting to watch the price action. But what's really caught my eye is once we zoom in a little bit more, we start to see this divergence where we start to see a positive correlation overall here at the daily levels with with the 10-year yield, and that's just not a sustainable sort of thing. So eventually, this is the normal relationships are going to snap back, and you're going to see something where equities have a. I think it would be a pretty quick correction. Once people know that the party's over here, I think that you'll see a lot of people jumping in, and it's probably not going to be pretty for equities, but. This is just one indicator that I like to point to because it's very reliable. And if you look at something like NQ, you can see, or just Nasdaq here, it's gone pretty, I guess you could say, pretty much pretty wild here, up to the up to the stratosphere when you're looking at the 10-year. When you pull it back into its normal correlation. So I do expect some sort of snapback here to its normal relationship, But of course, as the months grind on here and as equities grind up, I don't really know. Um, I don't really know. Of course, like you can't call a top; it's going to be ridiculous. But um, just looking at the general flow of things, it's really just not. Um, it's not conducive to uh, continue in the same direction. Let's just say that. So let's pull up the 10-year, and let's just keep this short here. This little flag pattern that we see, sorry, not flag, this this pattern that we see here. If we pull up SPX again, you can see this. You can see this little move down here, which is the opposite of what equities are doing. And if you actually pull up the chart, you can see that we might finally be, sorry for jumping around here, but we might see some sort of smaller pullback here, maybe to this 4.15 level, but I do expect it to go reasonably higher here, at least like 4.4%. I think that that's reasonable for the yield. I think the inflation narrative is coming back, and I also think that we'll see, the Fed, indicate that we're not going to see any rate cuts here until maybe June, and that's if inflation behaves itself. So I guess what does this all mean? So when we're thinking about this at the macro level, we might see some movements like in, let's say, gold. Okay, like if we see the yield move down, we'll see gold's inverse relationship take hold here, and we might see pop up to this maybe 2070, 2075 level. And if we look at some of the other things, even though gold isn't really correlated very well, or sorry, not gold, oil isn't correlated very well, it still seems like we're seeing, or we might be seeing a swing here with oil to the upside here, as long as we, maybe we'll tag this 75.10 level for an ABC up here. But I guess the long story short is we do see some topping, uh, and I don't want to say the top is officially here because that's not correct. But if we look at these things take time, of course. And if we're looking at ES in general, we see nothing but blue sky above this, above this level. And if we zoom in, if we're looking at this current week here, we might be seeing an overthrow. And an overthrow is really just uh, a price goes beyond upper or lower trend line and gets rejected right away. And kind of what we're seeing right here, I think, is a pretty telltale sign here that we want to see a back test. Now, if we do see something like this, let's say Monday morning, where we see this, see like a wave 2 pullback, we might see something like this develop, which is reasonable. I mean, it still stays within the range, and it's getting a little tighter as we move on here. But overall, I still think that we'll see, yeah, it's going to start to get a lot harder for the bulls to push up further and further. And again, once we get to this level, this like 5190, 5200, if we do get that far, but realistically, we probably will. I do think it'll reverse pretty quickly. We're starting to see some higher deltas for sells up here, and that's what this volume profile says right here. Um, so until we see some sort of buying positive delta like we see right around here in these parts, um, I really don't know if we're going to see a continuation like we've seen here, because there's really no catalyst. There's no econ news. There's no whatever they want to manufacture in order for the markets to pump on nothing. So again, it's going to be harder for the markets to continue up here, faster and faster, even though we are looking at like melt ups and some of the FANG stocks and things like that. But yeah, so hopefully that helps. That's just a setup for next week here. I think what we'll see is, if let's say we pull up, sorry, Nasdaq. I think probably what we'll see here is just probably a little more consolidation. Like we'll see this sort of move here, like a 5 wave down, and this might be a larger ABC. Um, and what I mean by that is you might see like a larger sort of corrective move where you could also make the case that this is an irregular. I think we talked about that as we first opened here, but yeah, so hopefully that helps. And maybe I'll do something in a couple days here once we have some more price data. But for right now, it's a lot of uncertainty. And just be careful out there and manage your risk. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.